Good morning, everybody. It's early in the morning, and if I hear any stomachs rumbling, I will ignore it. I'm Konicek-Moran, and I'm going to be doing part of a session this morning, and I'm going to hand it off to somebody else a little bit later on to talk about the details. But I am the author of the Everyday Science Mysteries, and I welcome you all to our session today and hope that it does something for you. A little later on, we'll be raffling off some gift certificates. So don't let us get out of here before doing that. I want to just mention the fact that people have been wondering whether or not the NGSS is going to have an effect upon books that were written a while back. Because within them we have the old, let's see, what do I call them? The old ones from the bookmarks and so forth. And I want to just mention to you that the fact is that the NGSS, I believe, has really done more with parsing out the idea of inquiry and bringing out the individual aspects of it. We work with the idea of preconceptions. I won't use the word misconceptions, but I want to start out by reading something from, anybody know Flannery O'Connor, the author? Well, she was raised in a very, very religious family, and she used to compose. Before she wrote poems, she used to compose a lot of prayers. And this one came through to me out of a subscription to the Writer's Almanac. And this is what she wrote. Dear God, I cannot love thee the way I want to. You are the slim crescent of the moon that I see, and myself is the earth's shadow that keeps me from seeing all the moon. And we know that the Earth's shadow has nothing to do with the crescent or the phases of the moon, but it's an old preconception that many, many people hold, even though it's impossible to describe the gibbous phases of the moon by the same shadow. I think people get the idea of this preconception because of eclipses, when they see the crescent of the sun as the moon moves across it. Hi. This is what we're going to read today. We're going to meet the author, meet the books, look at the scientific practices that are addressed in the mysteries, using them in the classroom, and how one district in Tennessee, in Knox County, implemented the mysteries into their curriculum. My wife, Kathleen, and I spent the last 14 years in the Everglades National Park as volunteers. And this shows one picture of us in the swamp. That's me sitting on the seat while my wife is off. She's an artist, and she was off gathering information about one of the plants she wanted to paint. And so we were up to our knees in water. One of our favorite things to do in this, which we called our cypress cathedral, because they're all cypress trees, and the swamp was one of the wonderful places that we love to be. Looking at the books, I went to a conference on a Misconceptions conference in Cornell. And I met a fellow there who was talking about the fact that all the books that were given for students to read usually had a Dr. Know-It-All at the end who gave the answers. And he was saying that he thought they needed something different. So I went home and started to work with some graduate students on writing stories that had no endings. The idea with no endings is that the students have to do some science, some inquiry, in order to finish the stories. And so this was the series that came out. As you can see, they started out with Everyday Science Mysteries, and then more, and everyday, and then even more, and then even yet more. And the young ladies at the NSTA press said, in the next one will be called No More. And that's about where it is right now, no more. Although Paige Keeley and I are beginning to write a new book together on conceptual understanding. During the time, I had a middle school teacher come up and say, gee, it's very, very difficult to get the stories on earth science or biology or physical science out of your books because they're all mixed up. So I went to the editor-in-chief and asked her if we could reprint the books in such a form that they would be just the biological, just the earth science. So those are mainly for the middle school teachers. I want to just start out with this, and you can read it yourself, but the whole idea is that we find that kids do much better when there are some sort of hands-on types of things. Now, I don't like the term hands-on exactly, because even though some people think that hands-on is the only way to teach, I believe that it's missing one thing, and that's called hands-on and then minds-on. And that minds-on is often missing, because I've seen many a teacher who thinks that just by doing the activity, the kids will get something out of it. But it's in the discussion that goes on afterwards and the parsing out of what they've done in the activity and arguing and talking to each other that the real ideas come out. One of my mentors is Eleanor Duckworth. Does anybody know Eleanor Duckworth? Eleanor Duckworth is about ready to retire from Harvard, so I'm not surprised. You all look too young. Eleanor did a lot of the simultaneous translations for Jean Piaget. Everybody know about Jean Piaget? Okay. Eleanor then went on to get her doctorate at Geneva, and then came back and she got the position at Harvard. And I think what she's saying here is that critical experiments themselves cannot impose their own meaning. One has to have done a major part of the work already. One has to have developed a network of ideas in which to embed experiments. I think this is very important. I want to just also quote something here from Bonnie Shapiro. Bonnie Shapiro is at the University of Calgary, and she wrote a book called What Children Bring to Light. And it's about a 1990 or so book, and it's been out for a long time. I think it's a very, very important book. But she says, and I quote, "When we teach science, we are asking learners to accept something more than scientifically verified ideas. We're asking them to accept an invitation into a particular way of seeing and explaining the world, and to step around their own meanings and personal understandings of phenomenon into a world of publicly accepted ideas." And I think that's a very important thing to think about. When we talk to kids, we are talking a different language because very often children are in a different world than we're in. What Bonnie did for her dissertation was to take about, I think, 6 children out. They had very different learning styles. And she found out of these 6 children that only one of the 6, and I have doubts about that, had the idea that we see things by light reflecting off an object into our eyes. Most of them think of our eyes as doing the looking and bouncing back into our eyes, kind of like a bat. And here's one little thing. She was talking to one student after they had looked at a videotape that they had done of him in the classroom so he could look back and see himself. And she said, "I asked Pierre about the segment of the tape when Mr. Ryan told the class that the reason objects are visible is because light reflects off the object and shines into the eyes of the observer. Pierre says, yeah, he said that, but I didn't believe it. You didn't believe that? You didn't think he was right? No, he was wrong. That's silly. So how is it that you see? It's the light. It makes me and you and him see everything, all the people in the class. Without light shining on things, you wouldn't see anything. And then she says, so when Mr. Ryan asked if people thought something different, why didn't you put up your hand? He says, well, I didn't want to. The teacher said so. That was one, so I didn't want to say it wasn't the way when he said it was. So we all may have had similar experiences of working with kids. And what Mr. Ryan was doing, and Bonnie couldn't talk to him because she was doing her research, he did what a lot of teachers do, myself included. And what he was doing was giving what Eleanor Duckworth called the critical experiments. You know, the pencil in the glass of water looks like it's bending when it comes out, the color wheel, things like that. Kids were busy doing their worksheets, filling them out, handing them in, getting credit for them, and not very many of it at all believe what Mr. Ryan said. And this is what I think we need some more inquiry about. So let's move on here. I want to introduce, I was in San Francisco at a conference giving a program very much like this. And as I walked in, a lovely young woman behind me said, are you the mystery man? And I said, yes. I didn't realize how lucky I was to meet this young woman who was from Knox County, Tennessee. Her name is Andrea Allen. She sits right here. And she only takes care of about 200 elementary schools and 300 secondary schools as a science supervisor for that particular county. And they use the books a great deal. And I'm going to turn it over to her very shortly and ask her if she'll finish up on this because of the fact that she's in the trenches and I don't know what I'd do without her. What happened after we met at this conference in San Francisco was she sent me some things over the email about the innovative ways that she was using the books in Knox County, Tennessee, she and her teachers. And I was so impressed, I asked her if she would mind coming and presenting with me, and she graciously accepted. And so I'm going to introduce Andrea Allen.
You know, Dick is so humble, but he is just a great man who actually changed my thinking on how to teach science. So at the time we've had, I know we have a diverse audience. We have we have early, like I think first grade, all the way up to high school. All of you are going to get something today you can use with your kids. How many of you have taught your students and they had a complete different idea about the subject matter that you're teaching, and you had to confront what that thought process was, and it was difficult? And that's what these mysteries do. So at the time that I met Dick, I was actually writing a curriculum K through 5, and I was having such a hard time doing these labs that are 45-minute labs, and for them to be really authentic science. I mean, kids can't think through authentic science if it's these quick little labs all the time. So I was struggling with my purpose as the teacher. How do I show these students authentic science? So we're going to do that today. So we're going to learn a little bit about how these mysteries do that, and they launch authentic science in your classroom. And then I'm going to show you a way that I implemented it, but there's several other ways that you can do it. Okay, so let's start with you guys. We're going to do a strategy called agree or disagree. So we've got two chairs. We've got a wooden chair and a metal chair. If both of these chairs are in the same room, and if you were to measure them, their temperature, would they be the same temperature, agree or disagree? Okay, so would these chairs be the same temperature if they were in the same room? Okay, so go ahead in your mind, think, Would they be the same temperature or not? Okay? In your mind. Don't tell me. I don't want to know yet. Okay? So we're going to visit, first of all, kind of look at these scientific practices, because I put the word, this did say the importance of inquiry, because that's what the books say, but they say the inquiry. But now, we're making that shift towards the practices. So you are going to see the practices because your students are going to engage in science. They're going to give priority to their evidence, and this is what I struggled with as a teacher, because my kids would flip through those labs and they wouldn't think and process about what they were thinking and what they were putting down. And I needed them to become much more of a scientist than that. And Dick said something the other day that was really profound to me. He's like, I kind of hate the word hands-on without using minds-on with it, because hands-on science could be a food fight. There has to be purpose. Just because you have your hands on it does not mean it's science. So we want them to do these big thinking ideas. We want them to be able to communicate and justify their thinking. That's what we all want as science teachers. So how do we do that? I struggled with how do I do that? So if we look at these different levels of thinking and inquiry, our first level is kind of that confirmation level. This is your DNA extraction, strawberry DNA extraction. You have your question, what you want your students to do. You have the steps and the method that you want them to do, and you're going to have a solution to that, okay? And that, nothing is wrong with those labs. Those are important sometimes. But that was driving the majority of my instruction with my students, and that wasn't good, okay? Then you have your structured inquiry labs. This is where you give them the question, you give them the method, and then there may be multiple answers for them to come up with. And boy, I thought I was on fire if I was doing that, woo, okay? The next one was guided inquiry, and if I did this on a daily basis, I was a rock star. It's where you give them a question, and then they come up with the method, and then they kind of figure out what the solution is. But it's still who's doing the majority of the work, the teacher or the student? The students, you're right. So then we get to this fourth level, and before I met Dick, and before I got these books, I thought the only way to do this level is to tell them to do a science fair project, to tell them to do a research project, to tell them to be there. How do I do open inquiry, open thinking, where I don't have a scientific question driving them, I do not have a method driving them, and I don't have a solution driving them? How do I do that? And these books do it. So that is where you will hit, is right here, is you're going to hit total open inquiry with your kids, and it's amazing how it works. So before we get into the details, I want you, most of you should have a handout, and I want you to look through it and kind of see some of the features. So with an elbow partner, I know some of you have already looked through it a little bit by yourself. Take a moment by yourself to look through it, and then with an elbow partner, kind of talk about these parts of the lesson and what they mean. We're going to kind of dissect that a little bit more. Okay? Okay, if you'll kind of go to elbow partner. I haven't given you tons of time, but we've got a lot to tell you in a short amount of time. Kind of share something with somebody around you that you've noticed about the lesson. What's something you noticed just right off, even if you haven't read it all? You guys are doing great for early in the morning. I love the talking. All right, so with your elbow partner, I heard lots of talking. What are some things you noticed as you looked through it? And I know I didn't give you tons of time to marinate over it, but what are some things you noticed about the lesson? Anybody? Yes. Hi, friend. Glad you're back.
Yes. I like the don't be surprised part, where it's like, this is what they're most likely going to think, or even maybe you, and just say no.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'll try not to shape your thinking right now, but yes, that's one of my favorite parts too. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I like how it tells you how to use it if you're elementary school.
Right. So we have a huge diversity in this room. And I can honestly tell you that I have used it as, like I said, with second grade, it could go lower, all the way. I've seen it used with high school. All right, anyone else want to share anything? Do you find that the content background is really easy to read? Almost like you're having a conversation? You didn't read it, but you're glad. I will tell you, for me, the content background was great because it is almost like I'm having a conversation with the author. He didn't talk down to me, but he didn't talk over my head either. And you did a good job on that, Dick. So let's go back to the don't be surprised piece. I gave you one of the lessons that this is where it started to change my thinking. And that's what Dick was talking to you about this morning, is to be able, when students come to you with a preconception, and I didn't always know where those were, but Dick has based his book off of research. So that don't be surprised section is research based. So where it hit home for me is this was one of the first ones I used with my 5th grade, and my son was about 6 at the time. And he said to me, he was riding his bike and we went to the ocean and he rode it through the salt water. So this lesson is about rust. It's about rust. And so if you look at Don't Be Surprised, it says, I think one of the things it says, I don't know for verbatim, but it says that the rust, students may think rust is alive because the way we refer to rust eating up metal, okay? And they think it's an organism. And we've seen through research, even our high school students sometimes think that. So what I said to my son, and here's what made the connection for me, is I said, don't ride your bike through the ocean water. It's going to eat up your bike. So the next morning, of course, his bike's covered with rust, and he comes to me sobbing, saying the animal of the rust has eaten up his bike, and it's destroyed forever. And then that's when I had a conversation with him. Well, rust isn't an animal. It's, I tried to explain it to a 6-year-old as best as I can. Later on that year, his teacher says to him, honey, you have a heart of gold, because we're from the South. And he came to me later that day and he said, Mom, I'm really worried. I just need to know, does gold rust? And I said, buddy, you don't have to worry about that. But he still, even though I confronted him with that misconception, he still held on to it, okay? Even though we had talked about it. So students really, they can be, these mental models that kids make in their heads can be highly resistant to change, firmly embedded in their thinking, and can dominate their thinking. This is an example of another darling child that I happen to be related to, she had drawn this before kindergarten, and she put it up on the refrigerator, and after, I think, her first year of kindergarten, yes, we changed our artwork that much on our refrigerator. She said, Mom, please take that down. I am so embarrassed of that. And I said, well, honey, why? Because the dog has 3 legs? And she said, no, I didn't even see that. What I am embarrassed about is that is not how the world looks. So here's my teacher mommy moment. I said, well, explain to me what your thinking was when you did this. And she said, well, when we went to the beach, I knew that I was standing on the land side and all I could see was the water side. So to me, this was what the earth looked like. But now I know better. My teacher taught me. Not my mom, who's the science supervisor, but my teacher taught me. So that is one thing that these lessons confront, is those misconceptions. And that is so important for you to know going into playing with these mysteries. So let's go back to maybe a possible misconception you may have. And that is, if you touch these chairs, what's going to happen when you touch the metal one? Yeah, you're going to feel like the temperature is colder. And then the wooden one is not going to feel that way. But in reality, if these 2 chairs have been in the same room for the same amount of time, they actually are exact same temperature. What the metal chair does is it conducts the heat from your hand so quickly it feels cooler, okay? So in our head, we have this mental misconception that the metal chair is cooler. Once again, these mysteries confront strongly those mental misconceptions. And one thing Dick says, and he is the inspiration for all of Paige Keeley's Uncovering Student Idea books, and she will tell you that. So he has done some extensive research and is amazing at what he does, and these are amazing mysteries. So let's get into a mystery. We're going to do kind of a lesson demo of Florida cars. Now, with my students, I believe in introducing the text multiple times. But you can just, okay, let's say you're in high school, you're about to introduce a concept, and you're wanting to catch your students' attention a little bit. So you're going to read to them this mystery that ends abruptly without a solution, but maybe it's the intro to what your concept is for the day or for the next 2 days, okay? Maybe then you kind of what I call hamburger it. You start with that introduction, you teach the meat, you do your labs, you do whatever you need to do to teach the meat, and then you come back to that mystery, the bottom bun, and you say, so what do we know from this mystery that was wrong, and what could possibly be the right answer? That's the quick and easy version of it, okay? I personally like the students to get a little bit more interactive, and I do what's called a mystery theater. So I took Dick's mysteries and put them into theater format. Now, how does this work? Well, a couple ways. Your younger students, you want to have already introduced the text to them. So maybe you've read it to them already, or giving them chance to read it as a small group before you get them in front of kids. But your high schoolers, often they will love to get into groups of 4 and play the role, won't they? And so will your middle schoolers. So we're going to do that today. You are going to take just a moment, and I want you to get in a group of 4, and I want you to turn to your reader's theater in the back of your packet, and you can fight over the parts if you want to. And I want you to kind of practice just for a few minutes on your role, because I'm going to pick some special friends to come up and perform. I know you're excited. So if you will just take a few minutes to kind of look through that reader's theater in your group real quick. Okay. What we're going to do is I'm going to need some actors and actresses up here. My friend right here in the red shirt, you're Jake, right? Come on up, Jake. Now, I usually do like cute top hats or something fun, but I had to go and resort to my easy travel hat. So if you don't want to flatten your hair.
No, it's all right.
All right, okay. She's taking it for the team. Woohoo! All right, I need a narrator. Who would like to be a narrator? Anyone? This is student volunteer next one. You stay up here, Jake. Jake. Okay, good. Okay, come on. Yeah, you both of you guys, no, you come on. I got a special spot for you. Here, narrator. All right, put your hat on. Do you have to have these hats to make this work? No, I just did it for the fun. Your car salesman or Amber? Okay, I need oh, thank you. I'm so glad, my friend, you came back. All right, so she is going to be the car salesman, and here's our parts. Now, sometimes this is more for the kids than for you because they need to know who they are if they lose track. So here they go. This is true teachers, mystery, readers, theater. Here we go. Action.
Amber was riding along with her brother Jake in their mother's car. They were going to see if Jake could find a used car he could afford. That meant visiting a lot of car dealers along the road. This is what Amber was thinking.
I like to listen to my brother and the car salesman talk about prices. It is like a big game, and I like to hear them go back and forth bartering for a deal.
This one is a little more expensive. First of all, it is red, and second, but most importantly, it is a Florida car. It just came out of the truck yesterday. Guaranteed Florida. Low mileage too, but most important, it's a Florida car.
Owned by a little old lady who only drove it to church on Sunday too, I'll bet.
Amber wondered what was so important about Florida.
I wonder if they make better cars in Florida than they do in Detroit.
Go ahead and look her over and see if you find one speck of rust on her. I'll even put the car on the list for you so you can look underneath.
Can I see the transportation documents so that I can be sure it came from Florida? Not that I don't trust you, but it will put my mind at ease to make sure it came from Florida.
The car salesperson got the documents, and sure enough, the car had been picked up in Homestead. in South Florida.
Even better than expected. I'll have to think it over. I'll be back in a day or two.
Don't wait too long, young fella. It won't be here long.
Jake and Amber leave the car salesperson and get in their mom's car and drive back home.
What is so special about a Florida car?
Well, for one thing, we won't have to worry about a lot of rust on the car.
Why is that?
Think about it, sis. Down there, it almost never snows, and they don't have to put salt on the road, so it doesn't rust.
Does rust always need salt to make it happen?
Sure it does. Don't you know anything about rust?
Actually, I do know some things about it, I think. It's something that seems to happen to everything I leave out in the weather.
Well, sure. It happens a lot to bicycles and metal stuff that leave out, but salt makes it happen faster and better.
Always?
I don't believe in always. There's always exceptions to the rule.
Always?
All right, don't get smart with me, little sister. You know what I mean.
Well, I think I'll just go ahead and test that idea about salt, because I'm not so sure salt is always needed for things to rust. Maybe other things cause rust to form faster, and maybe other things stop it from happening.
Knock yourself out, sis, and let me know if the Florida car is a sure bet.
Great job. Round of applause. You guys need to bow to your audience. There you go. Very good. Very good. You guys were fabulous. I was stalking you a little bit so he could pick you up on the mic. Sorry. I know. All right. So we've read the story with our class. No matter which level you're at, we've read the story. The ideas are out there, and we're left with a mystery. Oh, so exciting. Okay, so here is where we start to derive our scientific question with our students. So this is where we get to that open inquiry part where we figure out they're coming up with the question. Now, the magic of this is we've got them on the concept, but they're deriving the question. So what is the mystery? What are we trying to find out? The way that I usually do this is I kind of do this day one, depending on your age level. And I have the students all generate quietly, think time. And then I have them share in small groups. And we come up with as many questions as possible, because not always our first scientific question is going to be the best question. So we list them up there, we revise. What am I doing when I'm doing that? I am modeling how to revise a scientific question over a concept. And that is powerful teaching. And so once you get that question, then you've got a couple of options. One is you can start to design some experiments in your class that are going to lead them down that road. Or you can have them design some experiments. And they come up with the ideas, and they come up with the process, and they come up with what they think the solution is. Okay? So you're not doing your cookbook labs as in those 45 minutes with time. Kids need time to process. I know that's something that we don't have as teachers. But this keeps them powerfully motivated on their concept and gives them more time to reflect and think through the process. So let's go back here for just one quick minute. A couple of you are asking if the book has all of the science mysteries, that it's written in science mysteries. It is not. The first part of your package is how it is written. It comes out as the science story. And so that can be done as a read aloud or in small group. I just find that it's good to throw in a reader's theater every now and then to keep them engaged. The new books each feature one of the reader's theaters. The reader's theaters are Dick's words. All I did was put them into parts. The new books that are all or the newly processed books are the ones that are all life science or all physical science. They're brighter colors. Yes, that's one right there. They each have one reader's theater featured in them. Okay? Like what that one's in the physical science one. Yes. Yes, the NSTA sells the books. Yes. in the bookstore. Yes, ma'am. Yes. So, as tomorrow morning, we're actually doing another session, and we are going to spend time learning how to make the readers' theaters and also how to do more of the literacy piece with the text along with the science.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
The new books then, they aren't just recompiled, but there's been some editing and some changing of the way they're put together as well?
No, they're just compiled into life science, physical science.
But the Reader's Theater isn't in the original books.
No. There's only one reader's theater in each one of the new books.
Added.
It was our relationship came after the first.
So the books were recompiled and then a Reader's Theater was added to the
Yes,
books.
yes, that's correct.
Because I have the books, I don't necessarily need to.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to step out of this role for a second, and I'm going to talk to you about how our district implemented the mysteries into our curriculum. Our elementary teachers are a little terrified of the mysteries, and we are on the road to making that better for them. But they are fully embedded into all of our curriculum. Now, the reason they are a little bit, does anybody know why that they're probably a little bit worried about doing the mysteries? Any guesses? Yeah?
A lot of the science is more than most probably elementary school teachers have.
There's a big depth of science, but now that background knowledge section really helps out with that to keep those misconceptions down.
Too open-ended. I mean, it's like.
And really, I have middle school and high school teachers that are like, no, I'm afraid where my kids are going to go, and I do not want to do this because it's too open-ended. But really, guys, I challenge us as scientists and science teachers, we should be challenging our kids, and we should be okay with open-ended, and we should be okay to go where they need to go. Yeah.
I think it's awesome because that's what Common Core really is emphasized.
Yes.
So if you're fully implementing Common Core, this will link itself to the investigation and research process to provide instruction.
And authentic problem solving. And that's the other piece, is this is authentic application of science. So there is that hesitation. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, there's a hesitation with some of our elementary teachers. Some of our elementary teachers are they're just full throttle. They love it. The kids love it. They can implement it, and they do a great job of it. So what we did is we actually, and you can do this, is you can purchase the book electronically for your entire district. And then you have to get your licensing and do it you have to do it the right way. But Tyson is the one to talk to, and he can give you a license for your teachers. It's cheaper than buying a book for everyone. It's still a good price, but it's cheaper than buying a book for everyone. We then worked a deal where we could kind of pull the chapters out and put them into the curriculum where they needed to go. Okay? They have two options from the bookstore. One is kind of a login option just for your district to view the book. And the other one is that they can let you, as the district supervisor, manipulate the book into your curriculum. Okay? Now, are there any questions or anything that you guys have for Dick or me? Jake?
When you said you manipulate them in, I'm assuming you have a unit.
Yes. We have our standards on a certain topic.
Okay, and then within that unit, where did you put the mystery?
The mystery...
I think you're maybe doing a 5D model, maybe?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, we create what we call modules, and those modules have resource section. And we put that in the resource section. We've also done the same thing with the Picture Perfect series.
Okay, so it's not really sequentially embedded where this is where you're going to do this.
Day one. No, we don't do that with any of ours.
Each activity, or you don't decide where it's going to go in this.
No, the teachers have that autonomy. Yeah.
So the teachers develop their own unit sequence, but you provide the resource.
Right, within PLCs and Common Plan. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Without
Bless
trying
you.
to sound lazy, but not wanting to recreate something that may have been created, have the mysteries been aligned to the next generation science standards? So like these mysteries work well with this?
The mysteries are based, you can speak to that, but the mysteries are based on the concepts, and therefore, what,
So
I
I'm
mean,
wondering if anyone has gone through and this concept links with this next generation science standard. So, so like I have the 3 books. I have the first, I bought them many years ago.
Yes.
So I have the ones that aren't broken up for physical. And I could go through the books and read and be like, okay, this works well with chemical change.
right.
And slide this in as an idea of chemical change. But if someone else has already done that work, I'm happy to take the work they've done so that I don't have to do that.
I have not in my district as of now, so it's not that it won't be something that we may
Right,
do.
we've already adopted next generation science standards, so that everything is filing in that way now, so maybe it
Right.
hasn't been done, but I thought I'd ask.
That's a good question. Did you want to add to that?
Actually, it's really smart enough to do it because many these could work with different standards.
Right, it's just the next generation science standards are one
And I
standard.
understand your question, yeah, if you do have it, but many,
just now
many districts
going
don't
through
work
and,
with them.
Right.
Like in Texas,
parsing out
we're
the
not allowed to
NGSS.
write.
No, I know, but a lot of people
Well, and Dick has been ahead of the game with NGSS, but he's just now kind of going through that and figuring where those align. But I'm glad you brought that up because it made me think of something else. These dovetail beautifully in with Paige Keeley's probes. So if you're already using the probes, these dovetail beautifully with them. And you will see in the books, there's a matrix that lines up the probes and the mysteries together.
Are those in the new books or are those also?
Those are in all the books.
Okay.
Yes.
For example, I worked in England with a fellow by the name of Phil Scott, who unfortunately died at a young age. But he told me about a way of doing this where it started out with, he gave the kids nails, and he told them to go put them where they thought they would rust the best. And so the kids went out and put the nails. He treated them first, got all the oil off of them and so forth, and he made sure they weren't galvanized. And then the kids brought them in a week with the rust on them and explained what they thought rust was and how it worked. So there are lots and different ways of using the stories, but some way is to go ahead and start with the story, and then start your argumentation and your discussion with the kids right off the story. The other ways is to slip it in somewhere along the way when you feel you need some motivation. But right now I'm busy trying to get the new NGSS things connected up, and I don't know if you know about the NGSS, but they do try to accommodate the fact that we have always had a curriculum that's been an inch deep and a mile wide, and so they're cutting down a little bit and going after the practices more and with fewer things. So less is more in these cases.
Anyone else have anything?
I do want to mention one thing, and that is the idea of the conceptions. They're very important. We call them misconceptions, and we do that a lot. Misconceptions sometimes has a rather derogatory feeling to it. But we feel, the research does tell us that we need to move not to eliminate those misconceptions or those preconceptions, but to start there and try to move on from the preconception so that you can move with what they already have. And I want to also really mention the fact that you may not be there when the light bulb goes off. There is a story of the teacher who was teaching IPS, and we're using a modification of the triple beam balance where you could use a rider that could actually go to 1/10 of a bead. And the activity itself wasn't all that great. But in the back, there was a kid jumping up and down saying, I understand, I understand. And the teacher said, what do you understand? And he said, I understand decimals. How many math teachers thought that they understood math? He understood decimals before then. So you may not be there when the light bulb goes off, but you have to realize that you were part of it that led up to the person understanding these things.
Okay, and I think now we have a few door prizes. So, Dick, do you want to, on the back of your handout, or did you get numbers from others? Yeah. Okay, there should be a number. So, the first number is 10. 10, come on. Look on the back of your handout in the corner at the bottom. I'm sorry. It'll say, are you 10? No. Oh, you will. If it says a number and it's 10, you're going to come up. Okay, I guess 10's not here.
We have, instead of the books this year, NSTA asked us to give the gift certificates. So we have $5 gift certificates if you buy one book and $10 if you buy a set. Did you look at, you find number 10 yet?
No, they left. Give us a
Okay,
number.
we'll give you another number. 11.
Come on down, 11. And
Sounds like The Price is Right, doesn't it?
no, come on down. All right, let's do it. How many did you want to do?
Two.
Yeah, do one more.
You can take your choice.
Do you want
You're
to
gonna buy a set
or
or a single book.
okay, so that'll be good. Nice.
Okay.
All right.
And the next number on my random generator is 16.
Yay! Yes! Woo!
You win the car.
If you're buying a set or if you're buying just one.
You know, I was just having to think, as long as we got a minute left, one of the reasons that the kids think that Russ is alive, how many of you had mothers or fathers or someone who told you that if you stepped on a rusty nail, you could get sick? That's another one of, but the kids get their preconceptions in many, many, many ways. I had a graduate student named Kathy Metz, who, you know how long it's been, because she's about ready to retire from University of California in Berkeley. But she was the one that did a lot of experimentation with kids and research with pulleys and with gears, and found out that the kids came to their classes with a lot more developed theories than we had previously thought, because we had been before that in an era where Piaget and pre-operational, where kids just don't know anything or don't come to class with anything. And Kathy Metz, she certainly went beyond her advisor and doing research on this sort of thing. So we never know where these preconceptions come from, but they do come from trying to make sense of the world as you wander around and come down your steps in the morning and look around and try to explain things. And those are the things that we have to have the kids confront those, see if they still make sense in all conditions, and then if they can't, then we try to give them a new one, and if that new one is intelligible and makes sense to them, they may well try to move on and move on from that. My wife was in a class on physics, and you got to the point where they tried to talk about how the change took place. And she said nobody could really understand how that change took place. It just did. And it just, is that right?
Yeah, and it was, and not only was it hard to remember when the misconception flipped, but it was also painful and we all found ourselves getting really, really angry that he would ask us to, to go back to that. How did we ever think that way? That was our, so there's a lot of emotions attached to changing conceptions.
Thank you, dear. Well, thank you very much for coming out so early in the morning.